wait, hold on.
Okay, let's start by having you close your eyes and sit comfortably in this chair. I'd like you to go back to the memory of what happened and try to talk about it as if you were back in the moment or if it was happening right now. But remember to talk in first person and not as if you were watching the event take place from someone else's perspective. You might experience a number of strong emotions right now, but I want you to remember that this is just a memory and that a memory itself cannot cause you any harm. You are safe in this office, and this memory alone is not dangerous. During the exposure, I'm going to ask you how distressed you are at using the SUDS rating. Try to tell me as quickly as you can and then go right back into the memory. If you feel overly afraid or anxious, you can open your eyes, but try and stay with the memory and try to keep your eyes closed throughout the majority of the exposure. During the exposure, I won't be speaking very much except for helping you move forward and asking you about your SUDS rating. We will talk about it when you are done. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I think I understand, but can you just explain the SUDS rating again? I don't really remember.
Okay, yeah, sure. So the SUDS stands for Subjective Units of Distress Scale, and during the session I will ask you what your level is, and you can answer between 0 and 10. So for example, 0 is having no stress and being completely relaxed, whereas 10 is being the most stressed you've ever felt, experiencing a lot of fear and anxiety. Does this kind of make sense to you, Natalie?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm ready to start.
Great. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started by you telling me what your SUDS rating is right now.
Okay, well, I'm feeling kind of nervous about talking about this because it's just not something I talk about, so I think I'm at an 8.
Okay, that's okay. Now take yourself back to the memory and explain to me what happened.
Okay, well, I was at school, and I came home from school like I usually do, and I went to the apartment where I lived with my mom and my mom's boyfriend, and I just did the same thing I usually do after school, which is like get a snack, and I was sitting down on the couch watching, I think, one of my favorite cartoons, and my mom, I think she was there, but I didn't really see her. And I think she was in her room because the door was closed. And sometimes she would be in her room with the door closed when I came home from school. And she could sometimes just be sleeping or just stay in there for hours. And so I was just eating my snack and sitting on the couch. And my mom's boyfriend was there, and I don't like to say his name, so I'm not gonna say his name, but he was there and just talking to me about how school was and what I did that day. And he came over and sat next to me on the couch, which didn't seem weird at first. And he was watching the cartoon and asking me questions and like about characters I liked, and that was fine. And then he kind of like sat really close, and that didn't seem too weird. And he was touching my knee with his knee, which kind of made me feel like maybe I needed to scoot over. Maybe he needed more space. So I kind of scooched over, and I was feeling kind of crowded because I was already at the end of the couch. And then he scooched over even more, so he was still like, his whole leg was like pushing on the side of my leg. And he touched my hair, and he like kind of pulled it back behind my shoulder, and he was talking to me. This is the part I kind of don't like talking about. Do I have to keep talking about this?
Yeah, if you can, please tell me as much as you remember and what you're comfortable with talking about.
Okay. All right. I don't really like talking about this, but I'll keep trying. So he was sitting there next to me on the couch, and he put his hand on my knee, which I thought was really weird because I just didn't know why he was doing that or what was happening. And I did kind of notice and remember that he didn't smell, like he had this smell on his breath that I had smelled before on my mom when she had too much to drink, and maybe she looked weird and her eyes looked weird and she had this smell, and he had that same kind of smell and his eyes also looked kind of weird, and he was kind of leaning over in a weird way, and I didn't understand what was happening. And he put his hand on my knee, and then he started touching me in places that I didn't want him to. And I don't really want to talk about all of this. So do I have to talk about all of it, or can I just skip to a different part?
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead, take your time, go at your own pace. You're doing a really great job. I want to take this moment to ask you again what your stress level is, though.
This is the worst parts for me. Maybe a 9.5.
Okay, so if you feel comfortable and you don't want to talk about this next part, go ahead and jump to the next part of the story in which you want to discuss.
Well, so after I was sitting on the couch, and he got up and he went into the kitchen and he started making himself something to eat and talking to me as if everything was fine and talking about school and as if nothing had just happened. And I just sat there pretending to watch TV, but I wasn't even paying attention because it was almost like I wasn't even inside my body, and I just felt really weird and couldn't understand it. And I tried to sort of pretend like it was fine and normal, and I kept looking at the door to see if my mom was going to come out and make sure I was okay and safe, and she never did. She never came out of the door. She was just in there the whole time. And I was staring at the cartoon, but not really paying any attention. And I sort of felt like my brain just went empty. And then I didn't want to be in the same room with him. And I didn't know where to go, but I went into my bedroom and I closed the door. And I just stayed in there the rest of the time trying to just not think about anything. And I didn't know where to go or who to talk to. And I never talked to my mom about it. And I don't even remember if when I saw her, she even remembered seeing me that day or anything, because she didn't look like her normal self. And that's all I really remember.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for retelling that to me. So right now what we're going to do is some mindfulness exercises. So if you can, you're going to go ahead and just take a deep breath, and I'll do it with you. And we'll try and hold it for about 3 seconds, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, now one more time. Does that help you a little bit, make you feel a little bit better?
Yeah, it does. It helps me feel a little bit more relaxed, and I feel better than when I was talking about it.
Okay, so what we're going to do is, one more time, I'm going to ask you to go back to the beginning of the story and tell me the details once again. And hopefully, this time it's going to be a little bit easier, and that's the whole purpose of this, is each time you tell it, your stress level will go down. That way it'll make you easier to recount this, not just to me, but if you're ever telling it to someone else.
Yeah, I noticed when I was talking about it, I didn't like it, and I didn't feel good inside. And then after telling it, I felt a little better.
Well, I'm glad. This is what we're here for, and this is the goal of this.